Survival games. We love them, especially on this channel. They're a popular and honestly quite saturated genre of games nowadays. Keyword on nowadays, since this genre is still a relatively new one, all things considered. Particularly if you look towards actual survival games. I'm talking about chopping trees, crafting stuff, dealing with your hunger, thirst and all sorts. Quote unquote survival games can apply to a lot of different types of games, but when I hear the word, I think of games like Don't Starve, of course, The Forest, Raft, heck, even Minecraft to an extent. But there's one game that always sings in my mind when I think about survival games. It's one that I'm not sure many people know about nowadays, but it's one I feel pretty much gave birth to the entire genre. That game is Stranded. Released in 2003 by Peter Schaus, apology for the pronunciations, under the moniker of Unreal Software, which by the way has no relation to the game engine or Epic Games at all, Stranded is one of the grandfathers of the survival game genre. It came out long before the genre was even seen in other games. For reference, the earliest game example I gave earlier, Minecraft, was developed around 2009, with survival mode only being formally added later the same year. There were a few games that called themselves survival games before Stranded 1 was even released, but none really struck the same formula that it did. The good old survival island, build, craft stuff, deal with your stats and all sorts. The game itself was in turn inspired by an incredibly undocumented game known as Skiffbrook. I apologise again for the pronunciation. But it is a German freeware game that never saw much popularity out of a few tiny spheres. It was released around 1999, and honestly might be the first survival game ever made. I honestly wish I could say more about it, but the game is practically impossible to find anything about nowadays. Fortunately though, the game was, as recently as 2023, ported to JavaScript and is playable within your browser. Maybe I'll do a deep dive video on this at some point. It also kind of reminds me of Haven and Hearth slightly. But I'm getting off topic. Stranded did the best it could to capture the survival island gameplay. However, it wasn't until its sequel, Stranded 2, did the game really flourish into what would commonly be adopted as the standard, with mechanics seen in most survival games to this very day. Stranded 2's development started shortly after the launch of the first game during the same year due to the original's unprecedented reception, and officially launched 4 years later in 2007, still predating most common survival games. However, between the launch of Stranded 1 and 2, Peter would also work on and finish a little flash game known as CS2D, or Counter-Strike 2D. I remember playing this on school computers back in the day, and never knew it was made by the same guy. CS2D would become hugely popular, and can even be found on Steam today. Small world, huh? So in today's video, I plan on taking an in-depth dive into Stranded 2, exploring its story mode to completion, as well as checking out pretty much everything else it's capable of. Spoiler alert, it's surprisingly a lot for a game that predates the majority of my audience. Join me as I see how we went from this, to this, and eventually go on to inspire titles such as this. But why Stranded 2 instead of 1? Well, I feel Stranded 2 is what defines the genre a lot better than its predecessor. That, and it offers considerably more than the first game did. But I also feel like you can only look at this for so long without feeling the slightest bit perturbed. The appeal of old stanky PC games. Maybe one day I'll do a deep dive on this game in particular, but for now I'll be focusing almost entirely on its sequel. We got a lot to cover, so how about we start from the top. Welcome to the most 2007 main menu screen ever made. The music itself is a short 10-second loop and I honestly could not be happier with it. By the way, I just want to mention this now, this game, as well as the first one, is free to play from their website and just worked right out of the box on Windows 10. Honestly, the only thing I had to tinker with on my end was editing a single line in an INI file to get a proper 16:9 resolution, since back in 2007, monitors looked like this. We have a lot to choose from. Adventure mode, which is your main story-based mode, Random Island, which lets you generate, get this, random island with a few parameters, which was incredibly advanced for its time, and Single Island, which lets you play on a few custom-made islands, such as this Simon Says game mode, a shooting range, a survival tutorial, and heck, even a fully functioning tower defense mode? What? As well as all that, the game has a fully functional map editor, where you can make your own islands, campaigns, and even stories. But we'll get into that later. For now, let's start our survival adventure.
I remember it as if it were yesterday. I had just bought a new yacht, and I was eager to take it for a ride, so I took it out to sea. In my excitement, I didn't really pay attention to where I was going, and I got into a storm. The storm drove me off course.
Yeah, I don't think you had a fully voice-acted cutscene on your bingo card for this almost 15-year-old indie game, but alas, here we are, washed up on the shore of this tropical island. It looks charming, to put it lightly. The aesthetics of this game remind me a lot of Runescape, specifically the 2007 Runescape, which was massively popular at the time. Also the reason I'm using its OSC for this video, since this game's soundtrack consists of like 3 different 10-second loops. Enough babbling though. After swimming to shore, we orientate ourselves. The game is in a first-person perspective, as you can see. You move with WAS and D, click to swing at things. And swing at things we shall do as we smash up these washed-up crates on the shore to get some early game supplies. I also take the time to swim out to these logs and bring them closer to shore, one at a time. This game has a weight limit in your inventory, which is pretty oppressive early on, but we eventually find a way to increase it. Just wait and see the obtuse method we use to actually increase it though. So yeah, here we are, our new home for the next few days. It's a cool tropical rainforest populated by probably the best looking monkeys I've ever seen in my life, as well as parrots and... oh my gosh, I'm just playing Shipwrecked again, aren't I? I promise, part 2 of the Wagstaff video is coming soon. Maybe. Anyway, let's look at our HUD. In the top left we have our various bars. From the top down we have health, hunger, thirst, and fatigue. Pretty self-explanatory how we keep those in check. We're going to need food, water, and a proper shelter since sleeping in the wilderness wouldn't be the most desirable. In the bottom right, we also have our equipped item. Because this game comes from the use your imagination generation of games, this is where our equipped item will show up, instead of actually in our hands. So when I'm swinging at things, just refer down there to see exactly what I'm swinging. Though most of the time it will just be my bare hands. And finally, let's take a quick glance over our menus. We have our inventory, which lets us access our items and see our current weight. We also have our character sheet that lets us get a detailed rundown of our stats, as well as giving us access to the sleep button. And last but not least, we have our journal. This is adventure mode after all, so our current tasks and anything of note will be jotted down here. But since we just washed up here, we have only one task: survive. And what better way to start surviving in practically any game than bloodying your knuckles on a nearby tree to gather branches and leaves. This is your main way of gathering pretty much anything in the game, punching it. This also applies to boulders and such too, somehow. But whilst looking for some rocks to collect, we do find this little water spring that offers us an infinite source of fresh water. But already, just gotta be a little bit careful about those lions over there. But now that we have some rocks and twigs, let's combine them in our inventory. Crafting in this game is simple and obtuse. You basically select 2 or more items in your inventory and then click the combine button to see what you can make with them. There's no crafting menu or list of what you can craft. It's basically just a lot of trial and error until you find a combination of what works. However, with a rock and a branch we are able to make a construction hammer, which, when equipped, will let us start building. For now, our options are limited, so let's place down a shelter right up against this tree. I like the overhead building camera the game swaps to. What I don't like though, is that to build, you need to right click on the building site every single time you wish to add anything to it. It's absolute hell on your fingers. We get it done eventually. Now we have a decent-ish place to sleep for the night. After you build something, it unlocks more stuff to build, which is a really good way to direct you into what you should be doing next. With that in mind, we start building a campfire. We'll need more materials for that though. As you can tell by the game slamming a hammer on my eardrums to tell me I'm out of materials. As well as being out of materials, our stomach is out of food. Thankfully for now, there are some brown mushrooms growing on a tree nearby that we can eat. No, not by holding them in your hands, much to our character's dismay.
That would never work. Oh, it's not working.
But by selecting them in your inventory and clicking the designated eat button. Sadly, this doesn't mean you can try to eat anything you find, only food. Now that our stomach is full, we can gather some more materials. I try using a hammer to chop down a tree, but funnily enough, it seems significantly slower to use a hammer than your bare hands. I suppose if I'm pulling branches and boughs off, it would be faster to use your hands. We wrap up the first day by positioning ourselves under the shelter and clicking the designated sleep button found on our status screen, bringing us to day 2. No, I'm kidding, I'm not doing those day counters. A new day brings us new things to do. as well as the need to refill our hunger and thirst. Thankfully for our thirst, we have a source of fresh water right next to where we live, but for food, we can only keep ourselves well fed with mushrooms for only so long, and I refuse to lay a finger on these stupid looking monkeys. So I make myself a slingshot with some vines and branches that I'll later use to hunt dinner. And good timing too, since we just finished making our campfire. We'll need to light it by rubbing a stick against some bark, but once we do, we got a good place to cook dinner. Speaking of dinner so much, as I explore this honestly quite tiny starting island a bit more, I find some wheat growing nearby. We punch it like we do everything else in this game to get some sheaths, and then take them in our hand to turn them into grains. With these grains we can plant more wheat, so I do that right by our little campsite. With the remaining grain however, I combine them with a rock to get flour, which I then in turn mix with some fresh water by our little spring to get dough. The last step of our bread making adventure is to simply cook the dough on the campfire to get an entire loaf of bread. See now why I say this game reminds me of Runescape a bunch? After our hard work we chow down on that loaf, which fully restores our hunger. I sure hope we don't need to do that 15 times later on. Now that our stats are in a good space, it's time to build a little bit more. After making that campfire, I unlocked the ability to make some storage solutions. So I take care of that, making ourselves a nice bit of wood storage to keep all our branches, logs and all sorts. We do a massive Hulk snoo to wrap up yet another day getting by being all stranded on this island. So far the survival aspects are definitely on full display to see. It's cozy, quaint, and obvious to why this genre exploded in popularity a few years later. Completely unrelated though, I was messing about my inventory and somehow equipped this starfish, and then threw it like a shuriken at the ground. You can see how confused this left me. LARPing out of the way, we unlock the ability to make larger, more general storage, so we prepare the building site for that as we get the materials we need. It will need way more materials than the last field though, full-size logs and everything, which due to our weight limit is going to make this incredibly tedious to do. We'll get to that. For now, our hunger is getting low, it's time to hunt. I top my water up at the spring like always, and with my slingshot in hand, get the aggro of a nearby lion as we do a battle of the ages. Nice to know this strategy never died out among the genre. Once we kill the lion, we can simply loot it to get the meat, hide, claws and all sorts. I decided we needed more though, so after scaring the Christ out of me on these exploding mushrooms, got the attention of yet another lion and killed it in an even more epic battle than the last. We take our well-earned hunks of meat and cook them over the fire. It's not as much saturation as the bread, somehow, but it was also way easy to get, so it had that going for it. Most interactions in this game require you to hold something in your hands and then click, or activate it straight from your inventory. If you get any interaction wrong, prepare to be ridiculed by a whiny British guy.
That would never work. It's not working.
Damn, that makes two of us then, huh? For now, our goal of just surviving was being achieved slowly but surely, don't call me that. All we gotta do now is just make a tidy little dwelling for ourselves on this island until our eventual rescue. And the next step on that ladder was getting a place to put our garbage away. But man, is this taking so long. Chopping trees takes an age, and having to carry one log at a time isn't the best. You think we'd have like a flint axe or something to help chop down trees at this point, but no. That was of course until I did a little bit of exploring the next day around this mountain and found some metal deposits. Oh, but we're gonna need a pickaxe or something to no we don't, we just smash it with our hands like we do everything else and somehow extract raw iron ore, which we then combine with a branch and hammer to, once again, somehow shape into metal tools. No smelting needed. Just raw iron forged into an axe. Lovely. This will trivialise getting logs from now on. You can also combine the raw iron ore with a hammer on its own to make iron rods, which I was then able to turn into a pickaxe. It seems a bit odd and out of order, but hey, early days of the survival genre. I also managed to find some cotton growing next to these stinky plants, which will be super handy soon. The cotton, not the stinky plants. After killing another lion, we head back home with our shiny new tools to speed up the construction of our base. These tools are way faster at actually breaking trees and rocks, but funnily enough, give you less branches and such than if you were to use your bare hands. It was at this point I also noticed that in our stats screen, we have skills. The more you do something, the more you level it up, and unlock cool passive whilst doing it. At the moment we have logging, hunting and planting, but there are more to find down the line. A really interesting mechanic to have, fun little carrot on the stick to keep you going. With the cotton we gathered the other day, I was able to make a bug net. With this I can catch bugs, believe it or not. Catching dragonflies and regular flies just gives us bug guts, which is used for fishing. However, if we catch butterflies, we can get them alive. So after brutalising a crab for his meat, I head to a nearby field and catch a bunch of butterflies. Now remember earlier when I said there was a way of increasing your carry weight? This is the way. Butterflies have a negative carry weight modifier, so having them in your inventory increases the capacity you have. Why? Because, the butterflies are helping you carry more stuff. Somehow? Thanks? Ah well, with our massively increased carry weight, we get the logs and stones we need, and bam, we have our storage chest. And a cool fence I wanted to make to tie the place together. Now we can dump pretty much anything in there and not have to worry about losing it. Nice. But with that, we're able to craft some more stuff. I don't want to deal with that right now though, so I spend some more time exploring the island. There's honestly not much you can do here. You can cross the entire thing in a few seconds flat. Reminds me of the good old in-dev Minecraft worlds. We do however find this locked crate that we can't smash or open at all. Gotta take a mental note of this. On our way home from the short trip to the shore, I let my fatigue get too high, which just straight up starts killing me. You think you would pass out or fall asleep, but nope, you just start taking damage. So I run back to my little shelter and pass out for the night. After admiring my handiwork at keeping out the monkeys, I see that we can now make a full-on hut. Oh yeah, this is going to be more like it. I clear out the area so I can place down the building site and get to work, having to right-click every single piece. This is going to take a while, folks. Taking a break from building the hut, I find a bit more iron from the mountain and use that to make myself a scythe to harvest these wheat grains faster. Significantly so. In the place of the wheat farm, I built a quick and dirty rock storage since I have excess materials to do so, and it's good to have everything neat and organised. I do make sure to plant the wheat back in a new spot, as well as treating myself to a loaf of bread. But back to work on the hut. The branches and leaves we can find on pretty much any tree. Logs will take a while to move around, but can also be found anywhere, especially so now with our axe. As for vines, they can be harvested from these viney looking trees en masse. Between gathering materials for the hut, I make sure to swing on by the flower fields to catch butterflies since they do seem to respawn every day, albeit in lesser numbers. So for the next couple of days, this was life. Gathering materials, getting food, drinking from the spring, catching butterflies, building my hut. It's a simple life, but that's what survival games are all about. Simple little self-made goals. Combine that with the tropical atmosphere and decadent style, this game is a special kind of cozy. I could stay on this island forever, but I'd rather not actually. What would make this island even cozier is a nice self-made log hut, which I managed to complete. It was a daunting task, but through preservation I was able to do it. But what's this? After building this hut, apparently my character found a pick lock in the mud. A bit strange, but I have a feeling I know exactly what we do with this thing. We can appreciate our new home a little bit later. Take note of this moment, for this is the exact moment the game starts to spiral into absurdity. After brutalizing another crab and cracking open a couple of clams for their slime and pearls, we end up back here. Remember that locked crate we found on the beach a few days ago? This is exactly what we do with it. We used a pick lock with this very intuitive minigame of guessing left and right until the lock opens to open the crate. Inside we find a map and a shovel. The map has an X on it nearby, so we munch on a couple of berries and head over to whatever treasure and riches may await us. With my amazing orienteering skills, I was able to find the spot to dig and... I was playing the game at like midnight, and this, for some reason, scared the hell out of me. You can see me frantically swapping between my items to pull out a weapon because I didn't know if this guy was a boss or something, furious that I was about to steal his treasure. But no, he's actually here to help us. To keep his rambling brief, basically he came here on a ghost ship, of course, to find his treasure that we found. But we mentioned to him that we're stranded here, and he offered to ferry us off this island as long as we find him a parrot. So with my bug net, I snag a parrot nearby and deliver it to him. But before we can leave, we need to find him some other bags of gold he's buried on this island, as well as prepare any materials we need for the trip. So yeah, this game took a massive turn in a strange new direction. We went from roughing it up on a deserted island, building our cool shiny new hut, to a weird adventure as a pirate turns up with a ghost ship and asks us to get gold so he can take us back home. All within the span of about 5 minutes. We spend the night at our cool new hut, finally being able to appreciate it, and take a summary of the situation, as well as making sure our stats are well looked after, of course. Since I don't know what to expect at this point, I make a bow and a couple of arrows since I have a feeling I might have to fight things. By the way, I would like to mention, all of this is new to me. As a kid, I never made it this far, somehow. I think I just played the random island mode a bunch. But now we have a new goal to achieve. Survival was a secondary objective. Our primary objective? Use the new pirate map, find the buried treasures, and get them back to the pirate. Thankfully, due to the size of this tiny little island, it takes us no time to get to the first treasure. What the hell is this game? I managed to put out the turtle by throwing a water bottle at it, but... Anyway, we got our first bag of gold. I accidentally tried to eat it and did get this amusing bit of flavor text though. It was getting late as well, so I made sure to swing back to our campsite and enjoy the night in our shelter, bringing us to a new, surprisingly rainy day. By the way, the campfire was burning the entire time up until the rain started. You don't have to fuel it or anything, just relight it when the rain puts it out. Time to move on to the next dig site. I brace myself for whatever awaits me this time. Of course! Claw monkeys! Good thing I made that bow then, huh? They weren't too hard to deal with, but claw monkeys? Sure. That's 2 out of the 3 bags done. I'm kind of a bit worried about what to expect for the last one. At least this game is keeping me on my toes. With a bite of my tongue, I sink my shovel into the 3rd dig site close by the lions and find... Oh. God, I love mid-2000s humour. Well, we have all the bags of gold we need to leave now. Honestly, it's kinda sad leaving this island already. Only a few days ago did we just land here. So with one last trip to our base, we appreciate all that we've made so far. As well as that, we take what materials and tools we don't wish to leave behind and gather the wheat one last time. It was nice living stranded on this island, if only for a short while. But now, I think it's time we head home. Yeah, you've seen how much longer is left in the video. You know that's not happening. We take the bags of gold and everything else we could afford to carry to the pirate awaiting by his incredibly easy to animate ghost ship, as we set off back into the briny deep that took us once more. We have arrived on an even smaller but equally deserted island. Well, technically speaking, habited by this pirate. You see, his ghost ship could only take us so far, of course, so he took us to his special pirate island. From here we can see about getting a proper ship to rescue us to safety. But first things first, he wants us to light the torches around the island because he, likes fire. So we start work on doing that. The island is a lot smaller than the first one, and whilst we could see about setting up our own little base here, I feel like we won't be here for long. So let's just do what this pirate wants of us, killing more claw monkeys included, and see where we go next. It's not like surviving on the island will be hard anyway. We have a well full of water and a chest full of food next to the pirate's cottage. Part of me is a bit sad we had to say goodbye to our little dwelling so soon, but alas, this is adventure mode after all. Whilst petering around the island, I find a note in a bottle with a cute plug in it. As well as that, I find a pile of some of my stuff laying on the ground here. No idea it was all here, but good thing I found it, huh? It wasn't everything, I still had a lot of stuff in my inventory, it's just a bit of it was lying here for some reason. We speak to the pirate after lighting all the torches, and he gives us one of 2 tasks to do. We can either A, get the materials needed to rebuild his real ship, which will take 15 logs, or B, build a lighthouse to get the attention of another ship, which will take 30 stone. Due to how annoying it was having to haul logs back and forth for the house, I went with the second option, and started gathering a few rocks from the coast. Good thing we kept our tools with us, or this would have taken a while. After dealing with gathering the rocks, I hand them over to the pirate, and he says to go rest up for the night, as we'll start working on the lighthouse tomorrow. I wasn't tired at all since I already slept before giving the rocks to him, but as if by magic, when I went inside the cottage and left, he vanished. He left us here on our own and took all my not so hard earned rocks. But it looks like he left a note on the jetty, so we head over to collect it, but... The bloody thing collapses and we get mauled by a shark. I managed to escape it, but was losing a lot of blood thanks to a fracture. Sadly, I had no way to actually deal with the fracture and ended up slowly dying for the first time. But we just load our checkpoint and this time, carefully deal with the shock before plummeting into the water so we can fish the note out from the seabed without dying. To put a long story short, the pirate betrayed us, shocker, leaving us stuck on this island ourselves with no boat or anything to get us off of it. The pirate wasn't too untrustworthy though, as he suggested we use the rocks at the crest of the island to somehow find a way off. After grabbing a few materials from his storage, it's not Sealy anymore, he's gone, I head up the rocks he mentioned and get flashbanged by a green screen. The magical stone we just used is a teleporter that will only function when 25 Children of the Sea are placed upon it. So I used the old brain case and figured out that it probably means fish, clams and starfish. I grabbed a couple of fish from the pirate storage and then hugged the coast while collecting clams and starfish, even getting into a fight with some weird looking dogs near a shipwreck, who were coveting a healing potion. Nifty. I head back up the stone and lay down the Children of the Sea upon it. And after whatever that was, we end up on yet another island. This one seems way bigger, and basked in a red hue constantly. I don't particularly feel comfortable here, so I head out from the weird Stonehenge looking area I spawned in and find a little cave. Seems like the original owner isn't here anymore, and mentions 10 magical crystals that can teleport us off the island. Remember when this used to be a survival game? Well, our new goal is to find the 10 magical crystals and leave this island. Once again, I don't feel like we'll be staying here for too long due to how evil this place is, so I make myself a machete and end up getting into a fight with a goddamn dinosaur. It totally tore me asunder, so I was forced to use my new healing potion. I needed to be really careful when finding these crystals, but I was able to find a few of them by hugging the coast, letting me avoid the roaming packs of raptors. Thankfully, I still had all my tools and materials with me, so if I needed to set something up, I could. Although these raptors were kicking my behind, the massive amount of food I took with me were able to keep my health somewhat topped up. I also found this. Don't ask. I really can't afford to stay here for too long. This place is a nightmare. I just need to find my magical crystals and get out of here to whatever weird and magical island awaits me on the next one. And don't ask me to do a challenge video to see how long I can survive on these weird islands. It ain't happening. Maybe. I was forced to shoot animal claws out of my slingshot at raptors, since melee combat was absolutely not the way to go. I know I had a bow, but I had 0 arrows to shoot out of it, so slingshot it is. It also seems that this island is stuck in a constant state of twilight, as the time of day hasn't changed at all. That, combined with the creepy ambience, made this place seem more and more of a pass-through island. That aside, I still needed to sleep, so I took the excess hide I collected through my travels and constructed myself a quick and dirty tent. Sleeping here would make a lot of the raptors respawn, but it was a necessary evil if I didn't want to have to bleed to death due to lack of sleep. Food and water wasn't an issue right now since we took all the food from the last island and we had plenty of water pools nearby to keep us topped up. But what's better than food and water? A golden bow and 300 arrows. Yeah, we just found this laying on top of this mountain along with a healing potion, so now we can deal with these raptors way easier when hunting for the magic crystals. As we turn the tables against these dinosaur gits, we managed to find more and more crystals, one by one, until we thankfully found all of them. I was absolutely terrified at the idea of finding 9 out of 10 and spending the next 10 hours looking for the last crystal, but nope, we got them all with relative ease. With all these crystals in hand, a big beam of light originated from the Stonehenge we arrived in, and so I took the crystals and stepped into the light. And we arrived on the last island. Oh, and we lost all of our stuff. Yeah. Welcome to the last island, hopefully. It's pretty big, much like the last one, but is significantly more hospitable, unlike the last one. Once again, we could see about making a base and settling here, but I have a feeling our stay here wouldn't be too long, right? This is called foreshadowing, by the way. We had to start from scratch once more, like we did all those moons ago, when the game was a quaint little survival game that didn't have pirates, dinosaurs, and other nonsense. Maybe we're going back to a more grounded survival experience. I take that back immediately. On this island, we have two set pieces to work with. We have this village tribe that will attack us on sight and use their magics to set us on fire if we try to talk to them. And at the other corner, we have... this guy. With our options laid out for us, the only person we can talk to without spontaneously combusting is this guy, so we do just that. Turns out, he supplies the tribe with medicine. Yeah, medicine. So through him, we can see about learning their language and possibly establishing communications with the tribe. Am I allowed to be playing this? Okay, it was 2007, it was a different time. The Grandpa will also offer us some items if we give him branches, like cookies and juice. But the main service he is offering right now are lessons in the natives' language. But as you can expect, those lessons are not free, and he wants us to harvest 30 leaves for him before he'll teach us. So that's what we end up doing for the next short while, making sure to gather a few branches here and there to buy some food and juice from him. Since yes, this is still a survival game, believe it or not. Doing all this was especially annoying since lions would saunter on into the Grandpa's plantation and start attacking me mid-working. After barely scraping by all of that on cookies, juice and crab, I managed to finish gathering leaves for him. Now, thanks to his incredibly fast lessons, I'm able to communicate with the nearby tribe. However, simply walking in there wouldn't be the best idea, as they'll still try to attack me on sight. For that to work, I'm going to need to find a way to communicate with somebody outside of the village. Fortunately for us though, there's someone right here. We speak to him for a brief moment and come to an agreement that if I help him gather a shopping list of materials, he'll put in a good word for me at the village so they won't attack me on sight. The things I need to gather for him are a few basic materials, some of which are just animal skins. So I seize the opportunity to get into a fist fight with a lion and skin it alive. The other materials I'll need vary from branches, bark, feathers and bananas. Those should be all easy to come across, except the bananas. I haven't even seen a single one yet, so I'll have to keep my eyes peeled for those. Get it? Peeled? For now though, I make sure to gather all of what I can find, all the while surviving off the lion meat. Wrestling my way out of the tent on the eve of a new day, I start exploring this new island properly. Besides the village and plantation, there's honestly not a whole lot to experience on this island. It makes sense, I suppose. I am able to forage small mushrooms and berries whilst exploring, as well as finding some water springs to keep my thirst topped up. I don't really need to build anything here, since all the amenities are here for me already. Plus, I have no idea how long I'm staying here for before leaving anyway. I wander around the island, gathering all the materials and such I can find, which included getting a sick shot against this parrot for its feathers. At this point, all we needed for the guy shopping this were bananas, which, as they turn out, can be found right outside the village, hanging from trees. Just shoot them with your slingshot and grab them on the way down. With all the materials collected, we find the helpful lad outside the village and supply him with what we need. Then he tells us he'll inform the village that we can be trusted. So after waiting for him to spread the word, we enter the village with significantly less combustions and arrows stuck in us, and introduce ourselves to the locals. They all have something to say, but we're mainly focused on what the chieftain has for us. He and his tribe will offer to build us a boat to travel back home with, as long as we take care of a few chores for the tribe. Our escape is right at the tip of our fingers. All we need to do is plant 10 crops. Easy. Build 3 new bow nets. It means these little fishing thingies. This ain't so easy since they need a few materials to craft as well as level 50 in fishing. We have level 0 in fishing. Okay. And last but not least, bring him 50 loaves of bread. Each loaf of bread needs 9 piles of grains to make, which means we'll need 135 piles of grain to make all that bread. Considering each plant of wheat gives you 3 grains, we've got to grow and harvest roughly 45 crops of wheat. Also considering there's only like 6 of them on the island already, and that they take 3 days to grow each. Okay, we're gonna be here a while then, huh? You can see me just pause in shock at realizing how long this will take. Well, the only way we're getting off this island is through doing this, so we gotta take care of his new laundry list of chores. The first step in that is to make a scythe to expedite the harvesting and farming of wheat, since without it, those 135 piles of grain would take like 5 times as long to gather. So this, once again, would be my new life for the next few days. I went from surviving on my own terms, stranded on a small deserted island, to dinosaur hunter, to busboy for this tribe so I can escape the island. It's what I signed up for though, I suppose. I planted all the grain I harvested from the island in the walls of the village. The plant 10 crops task would be fulfilled no matter what, with how much wheat we need to grow, so I didn't worry about that.
You should worry though that with all this grain that we have planted, we won't have enough to make 15 loaves of bread. So we're going to need to do at least 2 harvests before we have a big enough farm to get all that wheat. All the while putting up with this short drum loop inside the village. At this point I was kinda desperate, thinking there's gotta be another solution. So I went back to everyone's favourite grandpa to see if I could buy bread from him, or even see if he knew better ways of making our bread. But alas, he had nothing for us. I even wanted to see if his fishing lessons would increase our fishing skill at all, since we need to get to at least 50 to make the fishing nets. This also did not come to pass. I once more walked around the island, fighting tigers and gathering food, supplies, all sorts. I came across these big old flytrap looking enemies that offered me nothing. Don't know why they were there. Cool set dressing, I suppose? I don't know. So, survival. The ship has sailed on the whole survival being the main focus aspect at this point in the story. Water springs are basically everywhere, and food equally so. Even more so now that I started power leveling my fishing skill to eventually be able to craft the nets. Behold what might be the most primitive fishing minigame I've ever laid my eyes upon. Yeah, you just right click the water. There's no bait needed, no other input, and seemingly no limit. You just right click on the water and get your free food. I imagine this is something unique to this campaign, specifically to expedite the leveling of your fishing skill. No, I hope so at least. Thankfully though, leveling the fishing skill doesn't take too long, and I was able to get to level 50 relatively soon after starting. Considering one of the skills in this game goes all the way up to level 800, I'm kinda glad that it levels this fast. Still didn't make it any more exciting though. But with our new fishing knowledge, we're able to make the bow nets. They require a decent amount of sticks and cord, but there's plenty of that all over the island. So whilst we wait for the grain to grow, we put those plans in motion. Which, look, I know I've done a lot of complaining for the last half of this adventure, but I feel like I'm within my right to do so at this point. To make these bow nets, each of them need 30 cord and like 20 sticks. So that's 50 right clicks just to build the thing. But to make the cord, you also need to click each individual ball of cotton in your inventory to make it into cord. So I have to do that 30 times. And then do all of that again 2 more times. Man, survival is tough. 1 net down, 2 nets down, 3 nets down. Most of that time was spent making cord, but we did it. That's 2 out of the 3 chores that we need to do for this tribe. The last one is simply outside of our manual control and just forces us to wait for the grain to grow. I struggled to find anything to do during this time other than wander around the island and collect food. But hey, after this harvest we got 1 more harvest to wait through, and then we're off this island. Right? After I harvested that crop, I roughly estimated how many plants I'll need to get the bread required, as well as having some plants left over to fulfill the whole grow 10 things task. Now with all that set up, it's time to wait. And what better way to wait than to just build random nonsense in their base? I made a little kiwi farm because that's cute, I guess. Something to keep my brain occupied while I wait for literal grass to grow. There's actually quite a lot of structures in this game I never end up making, so I guess that's something to look forward to in a future random survival island playthrough. It could be fun. Might stream it. Follow the Twitch for that just in case. These are the kind of things you're missing out on. Hey, that's like me saying to you guys, would you like choke out a child for a 1% chance at $1 million?
I mean, yes, but...
A whole lot more interesting than this. I also started to work on a small animal trap just so that I had something else to look at and keep my hands busy with. You've probably noticed I'm skipping on talking about the whole survival part now. Well, that's because it's just not an issue on this island. There's water everywhere, berries growing up from every surface, and if that wasn't enough, the well in the village and the piles of fish I caught from my fishing power leveling session would keep me well fed for practically ever. Anyway, look, here's an animal trap. It traps animals. Yay! God, I want to play Runescape so much after looking at this 2007 jank for so long. But before you know it, 2 days have passed, meaning our second crop was ready to be harvested. And harvest it we did. In huge thanks to our scythe, of course, for speeding this up massively. I harvested all the grain I would need, whilst taking care to leave at least 10 to fulfill that requirement. I machine gun ground the sheaves into grain. This game is a lot of clicking, as you could tell. Then turned that grain into flour, and like we did all those days ago on the first island, made that flour into dough and then baked it. Bam! 15 loaves of bread, 5 bow nets, and 10 crops growing in the woods. We talked to the chieftain to claim our reward, but... oh. They can't build our ship because there's too much seaweed in the water and they don't like it. Excuse me? Okay, one last bit of busy work before we can get off this island, sure, let's get it done. I dredged myself to the underside of the dock and rip out any and all seaweed I could find. It took a short while since I needed to sleep midway through, which funnily enough just made some of the seaweed regrow, but we cleared it all out. Nice. I am so ready to get off this island now. I speak to the chieftain, hopefully one last time, to bring him the good news.
We have to wait 14 days before they finish building the ship. 14 days. I've been on these islands for 14 days in total, and now they want me to just survive all that time again? I almost just quit and gave up at this point. But I ain't gonna let this game beat me. If it wants me to wait 14 days, I'll give it 14 days. Oh, I'll give it 14 days alright. On my terms. You can't sleep at 0 fatigue, you need slightly more than that, so just spamming the sleep button ain't in the cards for us. Yet. Instead, I just sleep at any given opportunity I have, which is when you have around 10 fatigue. Doing this does drain our stats of course, so we have to be mindful of that. But hey, whilst we've got time to kill, why not talk to some of the villagers? One of them offers me a treasure map for the low price of 30 butterflies. I'm sorry, can you run that by me again? Nah, actually this was one of the easier things we did on this adventure. Turns out, just shy of the village is this massive patch of butterflies that respawn nearly instantly after catching them. So I spawn camped these fools with my bug net until I got the 30 butterflies I needed to score me a new treasure map. Oh my god, that's a lot of treasure. Well, I needed to keep busy, right? Once again, I head out with a shovel in hand to uncover each and every mark on this map. We find all sorts of stuff out here, and most of it was complete garbage. Arrows for a bow we didn't have, bottles of juice, bones, a lot of bones, but most notably a key and another pick lock. There were 2 locked containers back in the village, so after I dug up all the spots, I headed back to the village, all the while sleeping whenever we could, even outside. This hurts us, but I didn't care. The first container had a bunch of random garbage in it. As for the second one... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... Right, left, left, right, left. Right. Right, left, left, left. Right, left, left, right, right. Right. Right, left, left, right, left, left. Right. Right. Left, left. Right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left. Right, left, left, right, left, right. Right, right. Left, right. He did it, okay, cool. You could tell I was just tired at this point, and it wasn't even worth it. Oh well, at least we kept ourselves busy doing that. We only have like 5 days left to go. Okay game, fine. You asked for this. I didn't want to have to resort to this, but fine. I just sat in a hut for 5 days straight, eating berries and sleeping until the boat was done. This was boring as hell. Sleeping in this game only skips time ahead a few hours, so we had to sleep more times than you would think. Don't ask what I was doing to induce this sleepiness, Mr. YouTube really won't like that. But we did it. Look at our cool new... Wait, why did they make a yacht? How did they make a yacht? Is this why it took so long? You know what, I don't care. Get me on this boat and off this island. Sayonara guys. Thanks for the help, but it's time for me to head home. It's been fun. Well, at least it was at the start, but the last few days were hell. I'll miss you, small woodland creatures I caught in my traps, and I'll miss you too, Chief. The boat has no fuel. The boat has no fuel. Just tell me what you need me to do. Get medicine from the grandpa. Sure, why not? Give me a moment. There you go. Thanks for the fuel. Goodbye. I hope to never see any of you again. You having a go? Oh, you've gotta be taking the mick. Boat crashed again. Whatever. Nothing serious this time around.
We just gotta swim around the seafloor and gather the bits of metal that fell off and somehow reattach them. Don't ask me to try and survive on this island, I refuse, but it would be cool. Now, can we head home, please? Perfect. That was the adventure mode of Stranded 2. Wow. What a magical journey it was. It started out as a wonderful little survival island simulator kind of deal with some really cool systems and mechanics, and then I found that pick lock, and then it turned into a fever dream of an adventure. Despite all that, this was an experience I am so glad I undertook. From start to finish, this game delivered me something I didn't know I needed to experience. It's no surprise to see how after this game, the survival genre caught on and is now the monolithic titan of a genre it is today. Still not mainstream or picked up by any AAA studios, but give it time. And don't forget the humble beginnings that it rooted from. Sure, it's janky, hard to control, a little bit long in the tooth, and the adventure mode nearly drove me to insanity, but by God does it deliver a lot for what it is. Especially for when it was made too. A truly unique experience once upon a time. Heck, its downsides are merely a relic of its time. That, and it was a freeware game made by a single guy simply because he enjoyed making games. It's a good thing this game didn't cost anything, since it was priceless. This whole experience was phenomenal. Heck, it still is. Even though I've done the adventure mode, I still got the survival mode to consider. Maybe. Again, future stream idea? Let me know if you want more of that. But this game is more than just that. Its map editor is intensely deep, allowing for full campaigns and such to be created. It is incredibly fun, deep, and surprisingly easy to use. You can make some good stuff with this. Unrelated though, I made my own scenario. Behold, what I like to call revenge. The generation of games where they all had map editors. I miss them so much. So what happened to Stranded? Was there ever a Stranded 3? Well, wouldn't you be surprised? There will be. As of August of 2014, Peter has been working all hands on deck on the third game. And you can see his work in progress as recently as this month. It is insane seeing how far the game has come and yet still has refused to die. Carrying on not only its own legacy still, but the legacy of an entire genre. I love this game, and I loved working on this video too. Thank you all so much for watching. It means the world to me to have you put up with my ramblings for so long on a topic I've wanted to talk about for years. I hope you all try this game out. It's free and I'll link it in the description. Make some cool maps and send them my way. Maybe I'll play them. But until then, stay loved everyone. Bye bye.